Good afternoon, my dear viewers, and welcome to Getty's Live Talk #Disruptive Education. This live talk was started by our founder, Dr. Sunita Gandhi, solely with the aim to disrupt education and provide platform to the educators, edupreneurs, and education leaders around the country and around the globe to come to our platform and discuss their ideas and knowledge and understanding about the field of education and provide these new techniques and innovative ideas to our education fraternity. So, with this aim to disrupt education, we have a very dear guest with us, Ms Jayshree Guha Thakurta, principal of Vega School. She is a qualified enterprising professional with an eye of for detailing. She comes with over 28 years of multidisciplinary experience in teaching pre-primary, primary, secondary, senior secondary, undergraduate and postgraduate students. She comes with a rich experience in consultation and administration in the education industry. She is mentoring learning leaders at Vega School into problem based learning methodology, which is most essential in developing life skills in the 21st century learners. She believes in implementing the learner centered curriculum, and Ms. Jayshree is well traveled. She has a master's degree in food and nutrition and bachelor's in education. She worked as a teacher at the prestigious Maharani Gayatri Devi Girls Public School for 10 years in Jaipur and later in New Delhi. She worked as assistant professor, Department of Food and Nutrition, College of Home Science, Rajasthan Agriculture University, Udaipur, and taught human nutrition to MSc students at university level. Later, Ms. Jayshree moved to Gurgaon as a facilitator and worked with students of all age groups at Shiksha Santra Unitech School of Learning and other schools. So, Ms. Jayshree will be speaking on the topic problem based learning. I welcome you, ma'am, and over to
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Thank you so much. And good afternoon, everybody. Uh, all the viewers, the educationists, the thinkers of today, all of us who together feel in disruptive education, which is all about change. And as they say, and I've always very strongly felt that one thing that stays with us and which is bound to happen in life is change. And here we are as the educationist of 21st century thinking towards this change. When I talk of change, and we as educationists think of what progressive education is all about, I would also like to put it here that it's actually not new to us. If we go back to Vedic times, we always were very progressive in our education methodology. And during the Gurukul times, there have been stories and stories and incidents after incidents which tell us that we were most progressive, we were most experiential, we were most hands on with our learners. But yes, through social and political changes which our society, our country went under, there was a stage where at least my generation, all of us, many of us grew up to what is called traditional education, which many people also say structured methodology. Now, structured, why it was called was it was restricted to books. Many of us still believe, not that it's bad or wrong, but I would definitely say when we talk of disruption, bringing a huge change in education was felt because many of us grew up in an era where books and our teachers were the only source of transferring their understanding and knowledge to the best of their ability. Whereas learning is an experience which is a two-way process, and as they say, nothing can be taught. And we always learn through in the journey together. And children always have lots to teach us, don't they? And if we let them off their thinking abilities to free flow, I think a lot of experiences from their intuitive learning comes and leads us into a methodology which would lead together all of us into a process of learning and growing further in life. And I think this thought has largely brought us, the new generation facilitators and learning leaders and teachers. We don't like to call ourselves teachers anymore, because I feel gone are the days of chalk and talk, where we would be entering with a book, writing on the board, asking the learners to either copy, understand, remember, recall for the sake of examinations and move on. So, gone are those days of chalk and talk, like I always say. And we are in a collaborative state where learning always is a two-way process. And when we talk of a two-way process, I very, very strongly feel that two-way process, ma'am, you can show my slides also. Some of them you can begin with the problem-based learning, and slide number 4, which largely talks about all kind of, not just problem-based learning, which I'll come to later, but progressive education. It's not teacher directed, but it is learner directed. And when we say learner directed, is we take understanding of life skills or concepts led by the children, their need, their understanding, and their requirement. So we transfer information to what they need, and therefore it becomes largely a learner directed process. Among the various methods of progressive education, it's become a very popular and I would say sometimes a fashionable world in the modern 21st century skills. But yes, it's needed for the 21st century learners, the Gen Z as it's called. They are living in a world of change, a world of frequent change, thanks to information technology, thanks to the pace at which the world keeps changing, that they really cannot get stuck at books and to something that's happened in the past. So, therefore, words that are normally terms that are used is inquiry based learning, project based learning, experiential learning. I would say, to me, all of them means more or less the same. There is nothing without experiential. Unless the learner or the child or the student experiences what the information we are planning to impart on them, it doesn't make any sense. Numbers in isolation doesn't make sense. Science in isolation doesn't make sense. If we don't learn from history and bring it to our real life skills, it has no meaning to us. And therefore, the words like experiential and project based education emerged in the modern day in our country and in the field of education. When I say this, let's move to problem based learning, which I very strongly support now. Now, what is the difference between inquiry based, project based, experiential learning? Project based learning, as it is called, problem based learning, is a methodology which is supported and scientifically studied by a certain pedagogy, where we follow a methodology of depth of knowledge which is going to lead the learners into understanding and discovering what they want to learn, keeping in mind the curriculum. At every stage, we need to understand that the curriculum is given to us by the board that we choose. It could be CBSE, it could be ICSE, or could be any international board. So that is what we have to teach, but how we teach becomes our journey. So when we talk of how we teach, we prefer, I would talk about problem based learning as the technique which comes across as the most progressive and leads learners into solving problems and getting them ready for future. And they can with pride call themselves the learners of the future. So, when we talk of problem based learning, most important is to understand the concept which rides us into learning, which is called DOK. Now, DOK means depth of knowledge. Ma'am, slide number 5 can be shown here. The depth of knowledge moves in a certain level, from depth of knowledge level 1, which I would say all of us have been doing since generation, that the students need to understand a concept, may it be at a kindergarten level, a nursery level, or at 10th, 11th, 12th grades. So we understand a concept, we understand the definition, we remember, we recall, and we reproduce information, which we've been doing in traditional methodology, and all schools are doing it, and that is depth of knowledge level 1. When we talk of the next level, we all of us like to take our learners into, and many a times we've been intuitively doing it also, that is depth of knowledge level 2. Now, what is depth of knowledge level 2? Let's take some concepts of science. I think I was made to rote memorize the definition of velocity, and then came the formula of velocity, and then why is it needed and how is it needed, and understanding of velocity. When you explain a concept, when you explain the reason for a certain cause that you are studying in your curriculum, could be environment, could be biology, could be humanities, we talk of depth of knowledge level 2. Here, the students understand the task, they explain it in their own words, and they describe what we in our traditional methodology would call as describing or explaining questions. So that is the DOK level 2. Now come to the third level of complexity, which is called the DOK level 3. Now, what is DOK level 3? The students must justify their response and support it with analytical skills, which is again the modern education system of progressive education is trying to do, that the learner should not just stop at being able to define a concept, explain a concept, but also support it with their own analytical skills to reach to a conclusion, which used to be done in literature. In literary courses, we often would do it, and there would be a portion of critical thinking. So we now try and take the learners into that level. Simple examples like, yes, we may be taking our learners for a nature walk to see when do the bumblebees appear, or when do the ladybugs appear, why do we see more anthills and ladybugs during rains only. So we take them for a nature walk, and then we take them through a journey of trying to understand why does it happen. So that's where we have, I would say, taken them to a DOK level 3. Problem based learning world over is known to push the learners to the highest level of understanding and knowledge, which is called DOK level 4, depth of knowledge 4. And there the complexity is of the highest order. Now, when I say it is highest order of complexity, what does that mean? The students pretend or predict a situation that may appear in the future and try and give solutions to that problem. They may create products or look for answers or look for solutions. And that actually gives us life skills. How does it give us life skills? We may have studied something, but when we face a real life situation, are we able to find solutions? At least I would say what I learned in the school, I never actually applied, or very rarely applied in my learnings and where I am today. It was through my own journey as adult that I learned and relearned through failures, through exercising my own options. Whereas this generation, we cannot fathom the kind of problems or challenges they are going to face. The best example is the COVID times which we have faced, and the most progressive societies world over. Why did we fail as adults? I think we were not ready to take challenges which we never could think of. Why were we not ready? Now there are answers to that. That we may be most highly educated, we must have gone to the best of universities and holding the highest of jobs, but we were not future ready. And let us accept that this generation, we do not know the kind of challenges that they will face, the jobs that they will have to, that would be created for them. They would, in fact, I would say, the job creators and job seekers of future generations, they would be creating and they would be also seeking jobs in that aspect. And we can't even fathom the kind of jobs. We are already going unstructured in terms of corporate working patterns. We are not no more working in silos and closed rooms. There is an open structured platform there where we are supposed to collaborate and coordinate. I think that's where there was a huge gap in our learning, that we were not collaborating and communicating and connecting with our society. We thought we as a bubble would be able to perform because we've reached a certain level of social skills. Perhaps we didn't know that what is happening in high density areas, how we can pass infection to each other, how, unless we look after everybody and each other, we would not be able to protect ourselves from something called a microbe who doesn't discriminate between anybody. So, problem based learning gets us ready to those kind of life skills. Ma'am, we can move to slide number 6. Examples of problem based projects. Now, when we move to problem based learning methodology, which is world over, as I said earlier, a well studied and a scientifically studied and put up a plan for taking curriculum ahead, any topic of inquiry that is taken. What is topic of inquiry? It could be a chapter or a topic in our curriculum. Now, when we begin a topic, how do we begin it? We like to take our learners into a getting into the zone kind of an activity. How do we do that? It could be through a story, it could be through a role play, it could be through a resource person who's talking about a real life problem, say something around environment, say it could be as simple as garbage disposal. So everybody talks about garbage disposal, a problem in our country, different methods, recycling and upcycling. So all right, that's there. But when you take the children into their zone, they are able to come up with certain kind of thought process and questions for us. What are those questions that they come up with? That gives us directions to something called a driving question. Now, the driving question is coming from the children that fine, when I go by the bus, I see garbage dumped. Who's thrown it? Have we ever thought? We say the roads are not clean, the country is not clean, there is garbage. But who's done it? Let's find it out from the little children. When the children come with these driving questions, and mind you, in problem based learning there cannot be one driving question. A spectrum of 20 children in a classroom can come up with more than one driving question. So then we normally put learners into groups, and they can take direction into different forms of research to answer their own question. That is where the role of a learning leader or a teacher or a facilitator is most important. The next stage that comes is, ma'am, we can move to the next slide. I'll move to slide number 8 and 9 later. Maybe we can look at the 10th slide, which gives a perspective into how we move into problem based learning. So after the driving question, there comes a desire for the learner to know the answer. We've not given them the answer, we've not asked them the question. They will push us to know the answer. To know the answer, we have to give them their voice and choice. What is voice and choice? I may like to know the answer, you may not like to know the answer, you may like to reach the solution because you think the solution may work. So a group of children should also be given that opportunity. This stage where the learning leaders or the facilitators play a very important role. Now, what is the role? We have lot of data available or through technology today. There could be resource people who can come and talk to us. There could be songs, role plays, dances, which are going to talk about it. There are going to be stories which are going to talk about it. There will be scientific facts which will lead to information about, as I'm talking about, garbage disposal. Here, we have to help learners into remain focused. There is so much of information that it is very easy for the children, for the learners to deviate from their path, and it is our responsibility to stop them from getting misled into information. There is so much of information on through information technology today. So that's where we play a role of keep bringing them into a focus and leading them into the direction of what they thought they want to discuss. During this process comes a stage of critical evaluation and revision. Now, critical evaluation and revision is like any other managerial skill where we have to keep evaluating ourselves in short term and long term goals. Are we on the right track? Are we digressing? Do we need to relocate? Or at the end of our project, how did we do? Did we do it okay? Could we have done it better next time? And it's an open ended space for the learners. There are no final answers to it. By doing that in their process, they start getting into the space of gathering data and information and understanding. So they are into their thinking zone and collecting information and planning to put it together. That's where major discoveries happen, major innovations happen, major realizations happen. That okay, say for example, I've always felt that we, the ones who are living in apartments and bungalows and in a certain space in the society, are the ones who create the garbage, are the ones who've created the slums of today, and we could blame them for unhygienic conditions in our cities. So we are the ones who have to find solutions to that. And that's where maybe our learners need to communicate with the society and community. Nothing works in isolation. They have to work together, find out what is your problem. If we have created, how can we together look for a solution to that? They should come back after that solution. And there again, we as facilitators and teachers have to put together a situation where they can present their options. Presenting their options could be a, a product that they've created. Like I'll give you examples of little ones. Ma'am, you can put up a slide where the little ones can create a project. Now when you look at these pictures, you may think world over everybody at pre-nursery and nursery level do these origami and making sheep out of cotton wool and this that. But here the learner has reached this stage, who's barely 3 years old or 4 years old, to a level of understanding not just the animals and how they look, but their habitat. How do they select their habitat? Why is their habitat different from each other? This is where we are at the level of DOK 3. And why do they choose differently? How do we think of categorizing animals into pet animals or farm animals or jungle animals? What is the use and who's discovered their use? And after that, are we able to push them to DOK level 4, where they understand and they create that how important is adaptation of spaces, physical spaces. When we talk of adaptation, we are also opening their minds to adapting habitat and home spaces for human beings. Have we ever thought, given them a question as to why animals look different? Why do they choose different habitat? Why have we begun choosing different habitat? And tomorrow, if there is a situation that arises that leopards and tiger are seen in our living vicinity, what has happened? Just asking the forest department to push them away is not helping. Do we need to collaborate with other living beings to create a space before it becomes impossible for us to survive? So that's where collaboration comes. That's where understanding the community comes. So when I say community, it's not just community as community helpers. It could be human beings, it could be animals, it could be plants, where the learner needs to understand that working together is the secret of survival for the 21st century children. Similarly, there is another very interesting activity, or maybe we can wait for questions here, where I would like to take you to the journey that in problem based learning, there is a very important aspect that we believe in, is we call it as I lead cycle. Now, what is eyelid cycle? Eyelid cycle is what I was talking about, that we take you to different stages of leading the learner to finally reach the solution. It is also a very multidisciplinary concept. When we are discovering a concept in problem based learning, we don't do it in isolation. Maths concept cannot be taught in isolation. Similarly, literary skills cannot be taught in isolation. So, are we integrating them through role plays? Are we integrating through songs and dance and drama and theater? Are we integrating them through speed or sports activities, which are very important space to learn even environment? Are the learners being encouraged, which we do in problem based learning, from from early years, to also understand maybe a story on environment through exercises, through maybe tree pose, maybe pose yourself like a cloud, Maybe pose yourself like a sun and a flower and see how a seed grows. So that is very important. And when you talk of integration, it could be my world integration with mathematics. In problem based learning, learners in a very early stage are also exposed to, say, if I want to give you an example here, we can talk of environment or color for the learners, and for shapes and sizes, and also in a very subtle manner introduce concepts like Venn diagram there. Venn diagram to me till recently was a pretty high end concept and not meant for early years, but in project based and problem based learning methodology, we expose children to Venn diagrams through differentiating between similarities and differences. Any object, any product can have their own similarities and differences. You can do it with strips of paper with two colors. So there is a difference. But what is the similarity? The size could be similar. So you put them in a concentric ring which is overlapping. So, how do you now take it to a real life skill? Can you apply this when you're walking on the roads and there are two animals visible to you? A dog is a dog and a cat is a cat. But can you find similarities and differences in them as a small child? So that's where I would say the learner, the student, has been given the skill to apply their classroom understanding to their real life experiences. And that makes problem based learning a methodology which, in the progressive methodology, is ahead. And I always advise all our educationists that we should always push in a classroom space our teachers, our learning leaders and educationists to take every concept to a level where the learners are able to apply it to some real life situations. Community helpers. Yes, we are not living in a country. Yes, all of us teach them about first aid. We teach them about nurses, doctors, teachers, parents, but we are not living in a country where you can dial a number and the ambulance comes. So, have we created a situation to role play where a learner doesn't get panic stricken and is able to make intelligent choices to go to the right person for help when they are at home with their helpers, maybe? The parents are often out to work. The children are sometimes left with helpers. There could be a situation of emergency. Is the child able to handle that in their own innocent space without harming themselves? I would say that's the life skill we are giving them if we teach them community helpers. Otherwise, in books and creating a box of medical emergency with a cross, all of us have been doing it. Even in traditional methods, we were doing it. I knew where my nurse room is and I knew whom could I go to. But we have to move ahead from there. So I think that's what I feel about problem based learning. And we could be open to questions, if any, ma'am, where I can expand even further if required.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such an interesting session. I was all through making my notes and taking down points from the presentation that you were doing. So now I would like to request my audience to put on their questions if they have any from our dear speaker. And ma'am, meanwhile, I would like to ask this thing from you, as you have shown these examples of the planning thing, the doc thing, that how we go from each level. In this process, as you showed that these little one kindergarten children were also preparing these projects and they were doing all these stuff. So how did you people manage to get all this done during this pandemic and online time? Like, basically, they were the parents who were helping, or like the teachers?
See, I would say parents were a great support for the small ones, but it has really taken us through a journey of amazing experiences where we never thought a 3 year or a 4 year old learner would be able to unmute or mute themselves or come to the mic or be visible for the video, and follow virtual rules of a classroom of raising
Yeah.
their virtual hands. And there, it's been a huge support from our learning leaders. All of us know, all of us teachers come from a space where computer technology came very late in our country. All of us had to learn, and it was a huge change which our educational community has gone through. So yes, I would see 1 year I've seen, and I'm amazed. What we were, I would say, Dr. Zainab, was apprehensive that would learners be able to form bonds with the teachers in our kind of schools these days. They would come and hug and identify one teacher and would want to sit with that teacher. But these same children, when went to kindergarten, from nursery I'm talking about, pre-nursery becomes really small, they were not wanting to leave that learning leader. They were wanting to continue with the same children. And when you would give them 5 minutes of break, they wanted to chat with each other and visit each other's houses. And as far as presentation was concerned, what we did is, our learner leaders have to be trained. All of them were trained into posting files, into uploading it on Google Classrooms, whatever work the learners were doing. And in a classroom space, all learners are cutting and pasting and sitting. Yes, for 3.5, of course, the parents had to be sent note, like we were doing even in physical school, to collect a basket of things for the children and keep them for today. So that we had to do. And presentation skills have been amazing for the learner to focus in front of the mic or stand in front of, like I'm sitting there, so their head is visible, or asking them to push a little at the back. And I created this by putting this, and I thought this could be the reason. If a child is able to present themselves virtually, I think it's been a huge growth for all us educationists, and a pat on our back to have led them and their parents into
Yes,
it
ma'am. Indeed, indeed. Like we are still learning, ma'am. We are still learning from each
every
other,
day.
and like our students are more savvy than teachers. They teach us, ma'am. You can upload it this way. This is a simple way. You can do it this way. So we are also learning, and they are also learning. But they are young, so they are quick learners. That there is no doubt in that, and they have these energies with them, and they are, as they are in their homes, they have more facility and resources available with them to bring out these things. So as you said that these skills will help children to develop 21st century skills. This instead of project based learning, instead of hands on learning or experiential learning, you said problem based learning should be the base. So if we uh, we teach them these core subjects, as you have written there, these are the core subjects. So do we have to integrate these problem based projects into these subjects only, or like we give them these projects other than the subject taught? I'm like,
Absolutely, we have to integrate them. Why? Because at the end of the day, we are following a curriculum.
yeah,
We have to prepare them, get them examination ready by 10th and 12th. So one is, we have to follow the curriculum, and second is, as I said in the beginning, I wouldn't say that experiential or project based learning is different. It is an integral part of problem based learning. We have to give them experiences, we have to take them through project activities. But what is project? It's a journey of a topic which is discussed and broken to a level where the learner is able to present their study, present their answers to the question, or present their questions to a problem, which leads to 21st century skills of collaborating, of enhancing critical thinking, of community reach, which are the most important. I would say communication and collaboration, empathy are the most important 21st century skills which have to be put in for a learner of 21st century. Otherwise, there are no answers to solutions. And these are the innovative students. Innovation, all this is also going to lead to innovation in the world around. Unless you collaborate and consider, how can one be innovative? And I'm sure these learners of today are going to take us to a path of lovely innovations also.
surely, surely, because these are the children who have maximum resources with them at present. They say it and they have it. nothing is away from them. They get every possible thing online. You buy these kits of making drones and preparing things, and they have waste material with them at home. As I would again say that they are at home, so they have plenty of material with them, because in school
I
teachers
would
give them a
say,
list.
yes, being at home has also had its own flip side,
Yeah.
that maybe the children we are talking about come from a space where they have everything available to them and in their reach. But yes, there have been also children in our country where it was difficult to reach. Availability of internet,
Yeah.
availability of gadgets was a problem. But there's been a wonderful collaborative and communicative process that has happened in our country, where there have been individuals who understood that how community collaboration is important, and learners also from society where they cannot afford this has to be given equipment to reach. And I've known schools where parents got together and donated laptops and mobiles to children who could attend classes, because we cannot after all allow a child of maybe 5 years or 15 years or 18 years for 2 years to sit at home and do nothing, because their parents can't
Yes.
afford. And after all, it is a society of collaboration. And as I said earlier also, after COVID, I think I'm very sure that unless we work in our community together, we as human beings, it would be difficult for the world to survive. Nothing works in isolation, and we have to look after each other too.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Thank you so much for such an amazing, ma'am, answer. And I would like to thank my audience for patiently listening to us. I don't think so they have any questions because they aren't posting. So maybe they will go and have a look again onto the things that they are doing in their classes, and maybe they'll apply the strategies that you have told. They'll use these examples which you have told and make their children do project problem based learning. And so this by this we come to an end of our session. Thank you so much, Jayshree ma'am, and thank you, my dear audience. Please keep watching our detox with the hashtag literacy on our global dream page, and do visit our Getty website for our upcoming trainings. Thank you so much. See you all again. Thank you, Jayshree ma'am. Have a lovely day. Bye.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely day, you too. May I exit?